Alrighty. Well, this is Dunder Moose. Welcome back, everyone. I am coming to you live by my live lone. So I don't know if he's trying to join and having some troubles, or it's kind of radio silence. We may be off on our time zones, so I'm just gonna vamp for a bit, and if he can join, that's great. Otherwise, we will reschedule. I am super excited about this guest. So I'm going to make sure to bring him to you. I'm going to go ahead and react to RDubs in the chat. If you're looking to connect with someone over a shared passion for Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, or any other hobby, it's essential to be authentic and not treat the person as a mere goal. I'm not sure what you mean by that, RDubs. The person as a goal? Like, are you talking about people that say, well, I want to have this many guests or this many players in my game, and it's a number? Is that what you mean by that? With that in mind, here's a list of questions you can use to get to know someone better, engage their interests and expertise in D&D. How did you first get into D&D? And then he says dating. So, let me see. Is there a way that I can get RDubs in here? I can put you in timeout. I can ban you and delete your comments. But that is not what I wish to do. What was your first character, and what's the story behind them? Okay, well, I can answer that. I can answer those. This is kind of an interesting opportunity. I don't really get to answer the kind of questions I like to ask very often, right? So, I would say, to answer your question about the first character, the first RPG that I ever played was called Star Wars. It was the D6 system, West End Games, back in 92 or 93. And I wanted to play a Jedi, right? But back then, I think the game was set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So there weren't really any Jedi running around because they had all been killed in the Clone Wars, right? Except for the ones that were in hiding. But I think there was a template in the back of the book for like either a young or a latent Jedi, something like that. You had like just a few Force abilities. You weren't super crazy or anything. And that was a lot of fun. And I just played him as a goody two-shoes Jedi. It was a lot of fun. The creature that Jabba the Hutt had in his belly. Hey Moldvay, welcome, man. I think they're called a Salacious Crumb. I wanted my character to have one of those as a pet, and so that was fun. Hey Brian, welcome, man. Moose call. So yeah, we're. I don't know if there was some miscommunication or something. Waiting on Griff. If he's not able to make it, I'm still going to cover some of the stuff that we wanted to go over. But yeah, the second question here. RDubs, for those of you that are wondering what's going on, RDubs has kind of taken on my role as interviewer, and he is asking me questions, and I've answered them, and I'm starting to feel like what my guests must feel like when they get hit with those Dunder Moose questions. Hey, Sar Bombadil, good to be with you. And I would say I prefer being a dungeon master, and I don't know if that's a selfish thing. When you're a player, you only get like bright moments of attention, but when you're the dungeon master, you are the center of attention for the whole time, and that's just kind of fun for me. So I don't know. Let's see. RDubs, man. I need RDubs. Let me see if I can find you on Twitter and see if I can send you an invitation. And maybe I can pull you in here and we can go through this stuff together. Go ahead and pop your handle in the chat if you would. I think you can at them, Moldve. If you put at in front of and put their name, I think you can respond. Is it RDubs 47? Hey Katie, what's going on? Yeah, I'm doing a thing right now. Okay. Good night. I love you, sweetie. That's my daughter saying good night. Oh, here's SD. Okay. There we are. I don't know if I can send you a message if we're not following each other. I'm following you. Go ahead and follow Dunder Moose if you would, and then I will see if I can send you the stream invite. Or actually, no, maybe I can do it from here. I'm still learning all this stuff. There we go. All right. Appreciate you being willing to help out, man. So if you click on that link, that should bring you in here. Hey, Bob Stevens, welcome, man. Candyman is here. Man, we got a lot. I mean, this is an exciting one. I'm kind of sad that it's not working out to join up. I feel like I've got an embarrassment of riches, guys. I've got so many guests lined up, and I've got some awesome topics, and I want to get to them all. But yeah, RDubs, if you go ahead and check your messages on Twitter, you should have an invite from me now. And just sorry to say if Griff shows up, I may kick you. But yeah, go ahead and see if you can follow it up. So let's see who all we got in the house tonight. We got RDubs. We got Moldve, who, man, I've had some great conversations. I should probably get you on sometime to talk about your interpretation of Rule Zero, right? Because I feel like you get a lot of flack for that, but I feel like you do it in a different way that when most people rag on Rule Zero, they aren't thinking about doing it the way that you're doing. So, so let's see. Well, you're welcome, man. We got Brian. We got Bob in the house. Bob's calling me a boomer. What's up with that, man? So Brian and Mobley are talking to each other. So yeah, just to get back to my answer, I guess my first character wasn't really that big of a deal. And then, so, we started playing BattleTech was our first jam. And then Star Wars West End Games fired BattleTech, and we played that for a good long bit. And then Warhammer 40K fired Star Wars. And then we went to college, and girls kind of fired all of it. I think the only game that I remember playing in college that was non-Monopoly was... Hey, can you hear me, man?
Yeah, I got you. How am I?
You sound great.
Cool.
So yeah, the only game that I remember playing in college was Axis and Allies, and we would just stay up all night in the dorms playing that game. And then after that, I stopped playing all of this stuff for years. And like to the point where I didn't understand how an adult could play a role-playing game and enjoy it. Because in my mind, it was something that we did when we were kids and we had no agency and we had no power. And it was like a way to practice being an adult. It was a way to practice being in charge of stuff. And like the galaxy was depending on us standing up, with the rebels against the Empire. And like, it was a power fantasy. And once we became adults and started being able to do our own stuff, I lost the interest in it, and I did not see the value until we were at my wife's parents' house. They have a log home in the woods, and I had found my old Star Wars West End books, and we brought some friends up with us, and they had sons, and I was like, oh, maybe they would like to have these, and so I showed it to them. Kids had no interest whatsoever, but the dads, like my brother-in-law and the kid's dad, was like, hey, what's that? And I was like, well, do you guys want to play? I think we could figure it out. So we played our game. And so that was kind of like my reintroduction to the hobby. So even though I started playing way back in the 90s, like I still feel like a complete Johnny come lately, and I never did D&D. So now that I've given you that long-winded answer, RDubs, let me turn it back around on you.
Oh, come on now.
Yeah. Why do you play tabletop role-playing games?
Why do I play tabletop role-playing games? I think it's a great way for me to spend time with my kids, but realistically, I'm a big-ass nerd. Excuse the language. No, I love the story. I love emergent storytelling, right? And I'm not talking about pre-planning or prep addiction. I'm literally talking about the agency that people have when they're sitting around a table together and interacting with each other and getting clever, man. There's just something about watching, like, I ref for like ages 8 to like 45, 50, 60 at the same table. And those interactions with people that have the same values and kind of the same sense of humor, what happens, you can't get it out in any other media, I think. There's no way to pull that out of a movie or a video game. It's just impossible.
Yeah. So, well, because even like the best, most immersive game, you're still only going to experience what was prepared for you by the designers and the programmers and that kind of thing, right? And you don't have the ability to jump the rails and do something completely unexpected, except in this hobby. And, but like, I don't know, Star Wars was interesting. I don't know if did you ever play the West End D6 Star Wars system?
I didn't play that system, but it reminds me of some stuff that I did play from what you were saying.
It was super rules light. It allowed you to role play because the rules were pretty much, what you had certain attributes, and every skill under that attribute had the same amount of D6. And then you could put points in the skills to start with, and then when you leveled up, you could get points in skills. So you were just trying to roll over with like 5d6 if you were really good, and 15 was about medium. So the rules weren't hard at all to figure out, and you didn't even have hit points. It was just like, if you got a certain amount, like if you got hit once, you got wounded, but if it was a big enough hit, you got incapacitated, and if you got hit again while you're incapacitated, you were dead. So you basically had 3 hit points, like 3 stages.
It's almost like chainmail, mass combat is what that gets down to. It's wargaming. That's the type of die roll in a wargaming, and I love that stuff. But
it was really tied to the the movie franchise, and part like the example scenario they had in the back of the book, it actually started with a script. And I think there were a few of their published adventures that started with a script, and everybody would just pick one of the characters to read, and you would like read through the script as your kind of introduction, which I don't know how good that goes over nowadays. I think they were trying to do kind of a show don't tell thing, but like, man, you really don't have agency when like you're not even making up the words your dude says.
That's interesting though, but that to me gets board gamey, right? Like that's like board gamey. But there's something to be said about, especially, you have kids?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I game with my young son, and then my daughters are a little bit older. But the board games, like I don't know if you've ever played Blackstone Fortress. It's a Warhammer like dungeon crawl, right? It's a sci fantasy dungeon crawl. And with the kids, it seems to turn into something like that, or something a little bit more like
is it like a fantasy Space Hulk kind of thing?
It is. It's essentially Space Hulk in a Blackstone Fortress. That's exactly right. So it's sci fantasy. It's a great freaking board game. It's like Appendix A. It's like Appendix A light, right? Like you're drawing cards and you're throwing tiles down. But it's really solid for the kids, and they can turn that. I think like that age, that's what's cool about playing with them. They can turn anything into like a role-playing game. They just start acting this stuff out, and you let them go with it.
Does your whole family play, or is there anyone who opts out?
My wife opts out.
My wife.
I can get her to play some simulation stuff. Like there's a game that I can get the whole family to play. It is Outbreak Undead. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No.
It is a simulation. You essentially, the way you create your character is you take like a 200 question personality test, and it creates you and throws you into a zombie apocalypse, man. And so wow. I can get the whole family to sit down, and I can grab a Google Earth image of a map of our area, throw it in there, and we can have fun with that, right?
Oh, okay.
And but other than that, I would say it's mostly like the board game stuff is mostly the two younger ones, and then the older kid, she's in a game for AD&D money that I ref for them. So,
okay. Yeah. So yeah, the games I get my wife to do, she enjoys like Settlers.
Oh yeah.
She likes to settle down. Clearly, she settled for me.
That's how it goes, man.
You know, like, she likes. There's another one called Splendor, which is about crafting jewels for patrons and making jewelry and that kind of thing. It's a card game. She likes resource planning. She does like strategy, but it has to be non-violent, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a game called oh shoot, what's it called? We just call it Bird Game. Where
Wingspan?
That's it. She loves Wingspan, and I love Wingspan because she'll play it with me, but it's got like that deep layer strategy stuff. Yeah. But like if I wanted to say play Blood Rage, it's got a screaming Viking running at you on the cover with a volcano erupting in the background. She's just not interested.
That's how that's how it goes, man.
Yeah.
And when I say that simulation, I got it to do once, and it had to be nonviolent, and it was about collecting stuff. And actually, what's fun is that's why I like Dungeons and Dragons, man. Is that I like 1E because of the simulation aspect that you can actually implement with that, and the exploration. And so, to me, a game doesn't need combat at all. If I can go out and we can go out and we can start looking for things, finding things. Like right now, we're running. It's an open table OE, like little brown books, with some Judges Guild like mining stuff, where I have the PCs going out with level 0. It's like level 1 PCs with level 0 men, and they're prospecting, right? And that's what they're doing. Right. And half the time they won't run into an encounter. And so just the adventure part is, to me, it's an adventure
exploration. So getting into now that we've introduced ourselves and why we like this hobby, how did you come to know about Griff? Like, how did he show up on your radar?
The documentary, man, and Tony's board, like that the documentary, I think it should be required watching, man. Like it's an movie. I mean, it is amazing. He did such a good job.
So it's available on Amazon. That's how I got it. I think there's other places where you can do it. Like on Amazon, you can either rent it or buy it. And I just recommend just buying it, because like I've personally watched it twice already, and I've picked up on stuff the second time that I didn't get the first. And like I got buddies that they I love them. Bunch of dads. We play when we can, but they're just into 5e. They watch Critical Role. They want to play 5e. They've got their D&D Beyond, so it's easy for them. And I'm just like, I want to invite them over and have a movie night, and I want them to watch this.
Yeah.
Because my first episode, I talked to Rick Stump. He's got a campaign that's been going for 44 years, and he had a quote that kind of really stuck with me as far as like why. I see that, Bob. I'm going to throw that out there.
It's funny.
This guy's hilarious. What was I saying? My goodness.
It was Rick Stump and his 44 campaign quote.
Yeah. So he said that like there's different ways of playing, where one way is when something happens, you look down at your sheet and figure out what you want to do and what you're going to roll for, right? And the other way to play is when something happens, you look up and think about what your character is going to do. I felt like that was what I was missing with the 5th edition. I felt like everything could be solved by one of my skill checks, right? Like the door's locked. Okay, let me look at my sleight of hand and thieves tools. The guy doesn't want to sell me the armor. Okay, well, let me look at my charisma and my persuasion. And it like, I don't know. It didn't hit the same. And
Yeah,
so,
no, I honestly like my whole theory with 5e is like if you look at BX, it's like the first 3 levels with a focus on combat and higher skill, and
yeah,
it leaves out the main game, the patron play, and everything. And I think that you miss out on something when you go directly into high fantasy because I can remember the first game I ever played in. It was a dungeon. It was a referee and myself and one other person,
yeah,
and within 30 minutes in that game I tried to climb down a well on a line in a bucket and I fell and my PC died. That
yeah.
was my first game, man. I died. I died within 30 minutes because I had no clue what I was doing. And I
And
think
did
that
that death kick you out and like make you not want to play, or did it make the game all of a sudden you had to take it serious and became more
yeah, it
fascinating?
made it serious. It made it interesting and serious and fun. Like I think that there's a game, and I think that there's a win and a lose in those in the game. Like, and I don't
Yeah,
think that's a bad thing. I think that it's actually a good thing. And so we kind of have this mantra because like my son is like me. He's a boy. He's not a girl, so he's whining, right? And because women are tough, man. Uh, but we always sit down and yeah, 10 feet can't kill a man, Bob.
yeah,
We sit down and we say, okay, PCs are going to die, characters are going to die, and we're not going to cry. You know, that's like if
yeah,
because he's 8 years old, man, and if he gets something in his head, like it's going to be a problem. So we got to pre-prep for the fact that, like last week, the game, 2 characters going up. We were playing. I was reffing Arden Vul, the Halls of Arden Vul
oh,
for
okay.
and
Huge
some
mega dungeon.
it's awesome for like there's so much inside of it to like take off and patron play with. It's actually
Yeah,
really a cool little dungeon, huge dungeon I should say, that can fit really well into like Judges Guild stuff. But I'm not going to spoil the module, but 2 PCs out of 8 within an hour and a half fell off a cliff and they were dead. And that's it's a brutal little climb that they put in that module, but it's fun. And they learned from it because they were young and they didn't do something they should have done that could have
yeah,
helped them, and they talked about it. So to me, it's like teaching experiences. And that's what I got taught by climbing down that rope and realizing that I could get far enough down, but not back up with the strength and dexterity I had or whatever it was at the time. So, but it's, man, it's a lot of fun. You know, I enjoy I like jujitsu with my son. I like doing stuff outside, but I also like sitting down and seeing him solve problems. And I think that
yes.
it helps solve problems,
In
you
the
know?
problem solving, I mean, I'm not here to tell anyone they're playing wrong or start any trouble, but like, I feel like the problem solving aspect of it is more enjoyable in a more classical style of play. And if you're looking to go back to like where did the magic start? What was the game that set the world on fire? If you haven't seen this movie, you don't really understand Dungeons and Dragons in particular, but you don't understand role playing either. Um,
That's a good point, especially with the way it came from the war game. Do you war game at all? Do you do
um,
miniatures?
Not for a while. I've got some BattleTech, and I
Yeah.
played like the starter rules with my kids, and they loved it.
Yep.
So we're gonna like build up to the full game, and I was watching the Joy of Wargaming, and last Christmas I got Xenos Rampant, so I'm looking forward to playing some sci-fi minis and stuff. So, but I haven't, it's one of those things where it's sometimes it's hard to find a partner. Again, my wife.
What's interesting about it, man, because with my kids, we do play like Warhammer and like Middle Earth and some of that
Mhm.
stuff, right? What I watch with the kids, and it makes me really understand like where Arneson was coming from and why like role playing evolved the way it did. Because the HQs that they sit down and they kit bash or put together like uniquely this miniature and then paint, and they
Yeah,
have that as their headquarters, as their high quality or their lead, their HQ units. Those take on a personality naturally with the kids. Like they get a personality. They have ways they behave naturally.
yeah,
And when all the chaff dies, and when the level 0 men die, it's not a big deal. But if something were to happen to that HQ, then they would start to have an issue with it, right? And so it's natural for the Napoleonics to have taken on that kind of like Bronstein versus table game thing, in my opinion, because I've seen it
yeah.
happen naturally with my children, you know?
For me, the most, and this is weird. I don't know if I'm unusual in this, but like the most satisfying thing about a session of Dungeons and Dragons is not necessarily how much fun I have in the moment, but how much fun I have recounting it to other people.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like modern module play, like if I was to tell somebody, oh yeah, man, we played Curse of Strahd, and at the end we were in his castle, and we had to fight the Hard, and everyone's like, yeah, that's what happens in Curse of Strahd. You know what I mean? Like, unless something really crazy happens, like you're a sorcerer and your wild magic goes off and everybody gets turned into a sheep, including Strahd. Unless something really stupid happens,
Yeah.
you don't get the. But like, playing in this older school, more the player can do anything kind of thing. Like, you can have the craziest junk just pop off, and it is like when you tell other people about here's what happened last Thursday night, you can just see like in their eyes that they're like, oh, I want to be in that game. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I have fun playing as
No.
well, but like there is like joy to be had in like reminiscing on what happened and telling other people.
I tell a story, like, I won't tell it now because it's not needed, but it's about a session. Actually, so when Neverwinter Nights came out in 2001, we started a persistent world that is still actually in play today. But there's some experience I had there because that kind of thing, that's the only time I saw video games as a positive thing. Like, I worked in the industry, but for me, my experience, that was the most positive because it was an open world. It was an AD&D 1E grand campaign. It was never going away. I mean, it used the 4.5 rule set, but things happen persistently, and that's kind of where I think why I like the AD&D 1E. But those stories that just happen when you're with a buddy or sitting around a table with buddies and allowing things to develop. My story comes out like it ends with me and my buddy's characters dying permanently because of what we did. But when we did it, it was amazing for a good 3 months because we kept leading people down into the Underearth with my buddy Invisible. And since I partied with both of them, I could see both groups, and I'd lead them right into the level 12 traps, and they die and we take their crap and go back out. And finally, we told, they didn't catch us. We had to let it be done because people were starting to get irritated, right? And I was a 20-year-old drinking way too much because before I found Jesus, I was not the person I want to be today, man. But it was a lot of fun, needless to say. And so those things happen at the table too. That bucket story and dying in my first game is a great story for me because there's no rails, dude.
Yeah, and that's the part that my wife doesn't understand because she's like, but none of this really happened, right? Like, it's all just in your head. I'm like, yes and no. Like, we have a shared memory of a dangerous place that we all explored together. That like it's got, at least in my head, it's got geometry, right? Like it's got architecture. I know where the rooms are and I know what it looks like in my head, and we've got a shared memory of something we went through together that just absolutely didn't really happen, but it totally did.
You're sitting there with people and it's happening together, man. I totally, because I can, you've had things that have happened in real life to you too, where you have the same feeling that you have with the same, so you can relate it, it's, I know what you mean.
So have you played Tannisborg?
I have, actually. Okay. I've taken my son through the first level, or he tried to go through the first level. So.
Okay, so I was gonna buy it, and then I saw that if I go to the conference, they still have hardcovers that they're selling, and so I was like, I want to get a hardcover. I want to get it signed. So here's the thing. I am told by my wife that we are booked up that weekend, which means the negotiations have to begin, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
My father is coming to visit. We live in the Rockies in the U.S. He lives down in Mexico by Mexico City, right?
Yeah.
So he's coming to visit, and I haven't seen him in like 2 years. And I'm sitting there going,
yeah.
Something.
On the one hand, I want to be a good family.
Exactly.
On the other hand, it's
a good son, right?
First Arnie Con ever, right?
It's going to be amazing, man. Like, I was talking to Griff about it, and I said, if you're going to do this, then I will come. And he said, I am going to do this. And I said, oh, dude, now you called me on it, right?
So what are some of the stuff he's doing? You can play Dungeon, the board game, with the creator on Dave Arneson's ping pong table that like they created all like I mean, it's just a game, right? It's just a game, but like that is the closest to a relic.
No, that's
You know,
amazing, man. It's fun.
and it's like $50 for a badge, and you can go have these experiences with the original Blackmore bunch. Let me just share my screen here. If anybody is able to make it, it's October 20th through 22nd. First ever ArnieCon. Go to this website. Let me chuck it up on the banner here. The TFOTT, that's the Fellowship of the Thing. And you can find all of their stuff on the website here. Secrets of Blackmore, the Lost Dungeons of Tonisborg. You can get t-shirts, all that stuff. And man, I can't wait to talk to him because he's got other stuff in the works. Like the first Bronstein. I mean, it wasn't a Bronstein, it was Bronstein. It was the first game. Yeah. Major David Wesley. And this was like the connective, this was the thing that joined tabletop wargaming and created the role-playing experience we have today. Because for the first time, people were in charge of just one person instead of a whole army. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about with Bronstein, you need to watch Secrets of Blackmore, and they will explain like what this guy set up. You know, he had a bunch of friends that were coming over. They were used to wargaming, and he said, okay, we're going to set up for a war game tomorrow. The two generals are meeting in this town in Prussia at this university where there's, you know, stones in the river, brownstone, and everybody gets a person, and he had them all in another room, and they came in one at a time and would tell them where they're going for their move and that kind of thing. Well, he didn't realize in the room they started talking to each other and making deals, and like it spun out of his control, and he felt like it was a failure, and everybody was like, this was amazing. Right? So he's gonna be there, and he's gonna here. Let me go down and show you the special events. So here we have Bronstein. I know I'm probably like saying that wrong. Everyone's get upset.
Oh, I'd say it.
It's Bronstein, whatever. We've got the original one. It's in the Bronstein room, and David Wesley is running it for you. So you get to actually play the thing that became what we enjoy. And the guy that came up with it is there he's still with us, and he's there to run you through it. And then later on, let me see, he's doing it again. There's Banania. It was a Bronstein variant. Like the first time that he did it, everybody loved it. Pardon me. The second time he tried to put some more controls on it because he didn't like how out of control it was, and people didn't like it as much because they were like, oh, I want more crazy. And I feel like this is where it got perfected, was Banania, and he's running that as well that weekend. So it's like, how amazing is that? And this is stuff that like we're only just now, it's just now getting its due, and I think it's because of that film that people are looking back. It's stuff that was, well, I mean, it wasn't left behind. There's people like Rick Stump that have been using first edition rules as written all the way through. Like for them, it never went away. But for people like me who came back to it and were like, okay, well, let's play 5th edition, and gold doesn't mean anything because there's no gold, you know, XP for GP, and like everybody starts off with amazing powers and stuff like that. I'm like, I feel like I'm not getting the good stuff, and like this is like
it feels like a video game, to be honest, is what it feels like.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to bash it because I know that like it was an improvement over what came before, and there's people that really enjoy it. There's a guy that I want to talk to named Scythian Barbecue. He is a 5th edition respecter, and he's one that seems, again, to play it in a different way than what my experience has been. So
the only problem is he's a fan of the elves, and I can't really deal with that. With Scythian Barbecue.
Well, they don't have souls, so yeah.
Yeah, they're dirty.
So I don't want to get into too much of what I'm going to be talking with Griff about, but I did, even if for whatever reason that one falls apart and we don't get a chance to meet, I definitely want to still let people know what's available and what's happening. So October 20th through 22nd, you can click right on this website, and you can get your badge. You can set up for the room rate for the hotel.
It's criminally underpriced, man. Like, it's a great deal. Like, if you look at what's there and what's going on and what that ticket is, like it is.
And I don't know if it's ever going to be this small and intimate again.
No, I don't think it will.
This is the first one. So here are the people, like Molly Arneson, Dave's daughter, David Wesley's going to be there. David Migari. I mean, these are the guys that are. This is the group that the first wizard, the first dwarf, the first dungeon delve. Like, now all the stuff that we think of as like the tropes, they were like just making it up as they went along and just having a great time doing it.
Homebrew house rules, man. Have you read the first fantasy campaign by Dave?
I have it. I have not read it, but I have I bought it on was it Drive-Thru RPG, or I can't remember where I got the PDF for it.
It's somewhere there. And like, when he walks through the way he populated regions and like hit die to like square mileage, it's actually really interesting. That the way he wrote it out is like, you could take any tabletop war game, and if there's like it's basically a point-based spy system for geographic location is what he lays out in there. So there's some actually really cool stuff that came out of this group, like beyond what we all know. Like, some of the little known stuff is amazing that they did.
Right on. And I mean, there's still some mysteries, and maybe Griff could answer. Like, when I heard of the egg of Coot, I was like, what the heck is that?
I didn't know what it is. Right?
Is that creepy? Is it scary? Is it goofy? Like, what's going on there?
To me, man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Let me also, if you guys want to follow along, if you're Twitterites, if you're people of Twitter, let me get my banner. Here is Griff's personal Twitter, Blackmore_.film. And you can see what all he's posting there. And they've also created another one just for stuff for the convention. And that is twitter.com or x.com /ArnieCon, the Fellowship of the Thing, TFOTT. So definitely hit those up, follow them, and keep up to date with all the good stuff that's happening.
I have one question for you. Has anyone ever shot a skunk during your podcast?
No, not during my podcast.
Oh, actually, it was during your podcast. I was doing dishes last night, listening to your podcast, man. And my wife came out and said, you need to go to the chicken coop. The dog is freaking out. And so I walk out there, and my dog is there. The skunk has dug under the fence and is in there. And I trapped one the other day because they caught two of my chickens, and they're killing my chickens. So finally, your podcast, because I was only out in this area and would have only heard this because of your podcast, man. So your podcast saved the lives of 5 chickens last night.
I don't know if that was mine, because last night, Rolling Bones.
Oh, it was Rolling Bones. I'm sorry. I thought it was yours, dude. That's my bad.
There was one night that I went up against it when I was interviewing Vomitron.
That's what it was.
But like I said, this show is a rave. Like, you never know when the next episode's gonna drop. You just gotta watch Twitter, because I'm just gonna be like, hey, we're rolling. And you never know now who the guest is gonna be.
It could be anyone.
It could be you could just be like watching RDubs talk about shooting skunks and getting eggs, and next thing you know, he's on Dundermoose, and we are talking about gaming. So let me hit you then with my kind of go-to question, and I feel like Ryan and I have this in common. Share, and I know you already did a little bit, but share with us one of your most memorable gaming moments. Like, what's the one that, like, when someone says, why do you think this is so fun? What's the thing your mind goes back to? Like, oh, when we did this, that was amazing.
Man, it's hard to get away from like the early 90s for me. And I think that it's going to be on tabletop war games and doing like campaigns on tabletop war games that just turned into role playing. And we had a Hex Grid campaign and I can't even remember what rule set it was, but it was one that my dad had laid out for me. And so we ended up taking over. It was not the Death Star. It was another. It was another, just a station, and he ended up pulling together like the whole trash compactor thing for Star Wars for me. And I don't have all of them myself, but it was the trash compactor scene, and basically. I end up dying a lot in these games, man. The trash compactor closed. We did not get out of the trash compactor.
Sometimes that's the most memorable stories. Like, you will not believe how my guy went out.
Right? Yeah, no, it is, and those are the ones. Sorry about the camera. Hold on one second.
Oh, no worries, man. By the way, thanks for coming on here and bailing me out, so I wasn't just vamping.
No worries. I haven't set up because I do a stream for a different industry, so okay. I actually had stuff set up in the office.
Well, I see the chaos symbol in the background. So
exactly. Are you for law or are you for chaos? And on that note, have you read 3 Hearts and 3 Lions?
Oh, I have. Oh man, that book was so amazing.
It's cool, man.
I feel like I read the best version of it because I read it on audiobook.
Yeah.
And the narrator was Bronson Pinchot, who you may remember as Balki Bartakamus from Perfect Strangers.
Are you kidding me?
Dude has chops. Like, I'm pretty picky about audiobooks. Like, when I went back for my master's, I was like working all day, and then I would like get just a quick dinner, and then I was at class for like 3 hours at night. And I had so much that was like assigned reading. So like the only reading I did that I could select for fun for my own, that I got to choose was audiobooks that I listened in the car going back and forth. And so I became a snob about my narrators.
Yep.
And like Bronson Pinchot nailed that book so hard with the accents. Like, I usually listen to them on double speed because I want to get through quicker. Like, I actually stopped and put it on normal speed and went back and listened to it at regular speed because his accents are so amazing. The dwarf, Hughie the dwarf, like...
Yeah.
No spoilers about what happens.
I haven't heard him do that story. But
it was so good. I wrote him a fan letter. I found him on Twitter and I was like, hey, man, I know this was years ago for you. But I just got to say, like, I really appreciated your performance and how you brought those. Like, when in the very opening of the book, when Holger meets the woman in the hut, the witch, like the way his voice changed when he did her just dropped my jaw. And
that scene is cool. On that note, like, are you watching like Dolmenwood, like how they did the Kickstarter? Have you followed that?
I haven't been following that one, no.
But what's interesting is like that's why Appendix N and like Jeffro's book and those books are so important. Just like this documentary, those books are so important. In that scene you're talking about, the cat's name is Grimalkin, of that woman in that scene. And there's a class in Dolmenwood called Grimalkin, man. And if you look at what he did with Dolmenwood, you can see 3 Hearts and 3 Lions all over, and some of the other Appendix N books all over that thing, man.
Yeah, and people that don't understand, like, I get it. If you play 5th edition and you're like, what the heck is up with alignment? Yeah, that makes no sense. I usually tell people, read 3 Hearts, 3 Lions, and you'll get alignment immediately.
Yep. Are you for law or are you for chaos? Yeah. It's the best line in that book, man. It's
and it's perfect. like all of the fey creatures that don't have a soul, but they live until you kill them. Like, they live forever, but they don't have a soul. But like, they're trying to get the clouds to just cover the earth because they hate the sunlight and they want the earth covered in darkness. And it's like, that's why you got to fight them, because they're trying to take the sky away. Like, they don't. Yeah. So
books, man. There's some really good reading in Appendix N, man.
So, but yeah, that was the one I started with, was 3 Hearts, 3 Lions, and I really enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed the performance, and like you say, so I've been running I got some buddies from high school that I play with on Monday nights. We Zoom, and we've been playing Forbidden Lands, And
Oh,
usually
nice.
my buddy Andy DMs it, but he was one night he was just like, I can hang out, but I'm just spent. I can't DM it. So I was like, I'll take something. And I'm running them through Black Worm of Brandonsford. And they start off in the woods and they come to a hut and there is a witch in it. And I knew because having read the book, I knew exactly what to do. I knew what she sounded like. I knew what she wanted. I knew like she was gonna call it a wee sprite, but it was gonna be like this huge devil, and like like I'll summon a wee sprite, and
Yep.
you know, and it's like reading that stuff just gives you it's like there's a big net behind your head that just stuff gets stuck in it, and things
You
can
start
hop
to see it
together.
in all these different modules and all these different games and all this different writing. You see where it came from. You know what I
And then
mean? And
it's just waiting there for you to pick it up and say, all right, I know what this person is, I know what they're doing. So
yep,
it's like it's prep.
it is prep. I guess that's my prep addiction is reading.
Yeah, it's all prep.
It's all.
So and when I was in 5th edition, I didn't understand the concept of mega dungeons at all. Because
No.
I was like, how does that serve the story if you just go to the same place over and over again for hours, right? Because I thought, you got to find the big bad, you got to, handle the storyline moving forward. And like when you play Keep on the Borderlands style, where it's like you don't have a story, you have a place, and there's stuff going on, but you are the story. What do you want to do? And the need to level up that you have in 1st edition, like the need to get gold and XP, and then you need to come back and train and spend your gold on training. It's not like a video game where like this glittering gold ring rises up around you and all of a sudden you're at level 2 now. It's like, okay, no, now you've met the prerequisites, get enough money, come train, and then you'll be level 2.
And it's interesting what happens if you have multiple parties and multiple groups running the same area. Like with this prospecting thing I was talking about, it's basically a 0.05% return on the gold of the mine or the vein that they find. And 4 parties went out this past month, right? One was totally wiped out. They're gone.
Oh, man.
Another one came back and their cut was 68 gold after it was like 2 weeks of adventuring. And then one came out with 68,000. Like literally, like they came out with they found a mother load of mithril. I guess
big haul.
Another one came back with like enough to level up every PC once. And so that it is actually, it creates this competition that is, I think, is what always makes this stuff a lot more fun too. It's like,
and like let's say you got a level 3 thief and they got a party that has a level 1, but he's got enough to level up. It's like, no, I want to train him. Why? Well, because then I'll get his 1,500 gold, right?
Yeah,
so it's like
it can happen. Yeah,
there's incentives.
Yes, and like a map. I was watching like I was closing a client today, but I was watching a Hexpress guy. I don't know his name, but he was talking about one of the dungeon masters from Dungeon Dragons or WotC, Chris Perkins, whatever it is. This DM thing and how to prep and. One of the listed things there was a map, and I think a map like is a great way to just throw down a map and start. If you look at some of the stuff from Judges Guild and how they've like marked out the hexes, like in Barbea Atlantis, there's these like it's like a 20-mile region where there is a lawful evil cleric, I think it's lawful good paladin, and then a goblin. Tower and like some hobbits, right? And to me, right there, you have this like you got the lawful evil in the same hex as the hobbits. To me, that's like okay, that guy's enslaving the hobbits right there. Like that's what he's doing there. So is this guy in the tower, that paladin, going to come out and help them? We'll give the faction to 4 players and see what happens, right? And that's how you get these giant stories, dude. And they come out naturally. It's amazing to watch.
And the alignment plays into that so hard, right? Like there's
you have to have it. Yeah.
There's elements that wouldn't be there without it. And like so Bob Stevens in the chat, I'm playing in a game where we have a ranger in the party and he's, lawful good. and Bob's character is an assassin, right? Which is got to be evil, but he's pretending to be a thief, and so like. But at level 1, in 1E anyway, at level 1, the thief doesn't the assassin doesn't get the thief skills until level 3, right? So he keeps going up and pretending that he's like, oh, I'll check for traps, you know. He's like, wave his hands, and he's like, oh, yep, this one's good.
Yeah,
because he doesn't want to let the cat out of the bag that I'm evil. And
what's really funny about that is today I was sitting there and I had the Dungeon Master guide up. I was rolling up an NPC party. It was a paladin, a thief, and an assassin.
Oh man, yeah.
And so it's just funny what can come out of the die when you toss dice.
Yeah, so like he was so relieved when a thief showed up, and like every time the thief goes, he's like, I'll help him.
Do you watch 3D6 Down the Line? They play a basic campaign of the Halls of Vardenvold. Have you ever seen that podcast?
No, I've not.
Okay, so they're playing it's a 1 module or 1E mega dungeon, but they're playing it with basic and some house rules. And the guy John's a really good ref. But the illusionist lost his spell book on like the first session and got it back on like the 40th session, dude.
Oh my gosh.
And like literally like the dude is running, I won't spoil it, but he found some invisibility potions and had this dagger, dude. So I mean,
he's trying to play it like a thief.
He was and his original PC was a thief that got fondued by like an assassin vine. Yeah. So those things, that kind of stuff, you can't get out of a video game. You have all this talk about like the AI dungeon masters, AI and all the video games, how they're taking on. It will never replace sitting around the table and multiple brains coming together and doing stupid stuff, man.
The only video game that I've seen that has that kind of level of stupid is like the old Halo games. Like some of the physics when you'd get the warthog and you would accidentally drive it off the man cannon and it would just like smash into one dude and all 4 people would die. The 3 on the warthog and the guy getting hit because nobody knew it was gonna just launch the whole thing, you know, like that kind of stupid stuff happens on the regular with this type of game. And so you mentioned, you said it was 3D6 Down the Line is the podcast?
Yeah. It honestly, they're on their 40th session. They've been playing Halls of Vardenvold since last August.
Okay.
August 2022. And I would say if I wanted to, I think that's how I introduced my youngest kid to, like, he started playing a year ago with us and I had him listen to, I pre-watched it to make sure it was okay. It's not really a racy one, but every once in a while. But they play it right. I mean, there was like a month and a half that took them through 2 days in the dungeon potentially. Like it's like they're playing it right. It's actually a good stream.
So, and then Moldvay also in the chat said, if you ever get the chance to look up the Classic Tales podcast, BJ Harrison is an amazing reader and the subject matter is potent. So you guys got, I mean, it went a little unusual tonight, but you guys got 2 recommendations for awesome podcasts. We still covered the con, but we're in our last minutes here before 10 o'clock. I want to ask you a question, RDubs.
Yeah.
Who's the best dungeon master or game master that you've ever played for, and what did they do that set them apart?
It would be a dude named Cole from 20 something years ago.
Okay.
And after playing, I think it was 3rd edition for a while, he was running basic, and I kind of remembered, okay, that there's this dungeon crawl thing, and that would be why, because he kind of GM'd and refed like the guy I'm talking about, John from the 3D6 Down the Line. He was really, really good with speed reading stuff and not prepping and just taking us through like different, I call them scenes. Like when you're in a room, it's a scene. I know it sounds theater kid, but really you got to spit it out real quick and get it out. And it would be because of the way he was able to quickly describe a situation with enough information that we could actually solve the problem. Because I think like when it really starts to slow down is when you don't get enough information right away to like actually solve the puzzle or the problem in front of you or whatever, man. You know?
Yeah. Well, and it's so breaking when you walk into a new room and then the person has to read the box text to you.
Yes.
And it's like not the type of language that they would use, and it's just awkward and stilted. That is one of the things I definitely want to ask Griff about when I get the chance to talk to him. I got a buddy at work, Tim McMenamin, and I asked him what he goes to a lot of cons. Like the dude is connected. He is a gamer through and through. He's seeing some stuff. And I asked him who's your top 5 DMs, and the first name he mentioned was Griffith Morgan. And he said that he played with him at a Gary Con in 2022. And I said, well, what was it that made him so good? And he said the way that he would describe, like when you walked in a new room, he said he would like lean back and he would see it first and he would just describe it to you as if he was looking at the room you were in and describe that. Or like it was so real to him and it came out so natural that it just put him right in that scenario. So,
I would love to see. They make me want to go to this con, man.
Yeah, me too.
Call my dad up and say, "Hey, stay in Mexico."
Yeah, maybe your dad can go to my daughter's marching band competition.
There you go.
Just go. We'll split a room. It'll be cheaper.
Exactly.
All right.
It's not a bad area for a con either. I had a business partner out there. It's a cool area too. So there's some cool stuff around there.
Right on, man. Well, we are 2 minutes past the hour. I want to thank you for jumping on, being the hero, and saving my show tonight. I want to thank everyone in the chat for showing up. Moldvay, Zar Bombadil, Brian James, Bob Stevens, as always. And I hope I didn't miss anyone. But dude, you might want to think about doing this. You were asking some good questions. You got a gift for this interview thing. So maybe just put that, I'll just drop that little spark of an idea in your head. And
I appreciate it.
We'll wish everyone a great night. Thanks for being with us tonight. And who knows when, but we'll see you next time.
See you, Zar.